In this video, we're going to demonstrate how to create a pie chart report, like the one you see here. This one is totaling test cases and their corresponding status for a particular release. We can click on the column total and see all the test cases that actually are being covered in this report. This report also contains a filter called Test Case Release that allows us to narrow our search results to only those test cases that are on our Vancouver release. Let's click on the Edit button and go into our report editor and see how this report was constructed. First, you'll see that this is a matrix report. You can see report criteria, our test case release filter, and then the underlying data elements in the report that include total test cases as well as the test result status we saw in our pie chart. Each of these data elements is in the appropriate column, row, and data field. We can drill down into our graph editor. And here we can see that this is a pie graph, and the data elements have been placed in the appropriate places. So now let's go ahead and create this exact same report from scratch. First, we have selected our report. It's a matrix report, and we're going to give our report a title. The next step is to select the appropriate data elements to include in this report. So we're going to drill into our testing folder, start with our test result properties where our data element status is kept, and we're going to drag that field into the row heading. Next, we're going to expand the folder called test case properties because we want to total up all of our test cases, and that's where that field of data is kept. We also want to total our test cases by their status, so we know how many failed, how many passed. So we're dragging the sum calculation field into our data field as well. We're also going to drag a label for the top of our column, and it automatically says total test cases, corresponding with the data field below it. Next, we've grabbed our test case release data element, which we're going to place into our filter box. And we're going to allow the user to determine which test case release they want to apply to their report at the time they run it. Now we'll preview our report to make sure we've constructed it correctly. Select our project. Again, select our release, working with our Vancouver release. And we'll go ahead and execute that report. You can see we have two columns, our test result status and total test cases, and the corresponding number for each. Now that we know our report is constructed correctly, we'll go to add the graph element to it. Select our title, the pie graph, and now we are going to drag the appropriate data elements into the corresponding locations on our pie chart. So test result status is our slice. Total test cases is our data series. The sum field, if we try to drag it, we'll see it turned red and we get a warning message. So only one data field in the data series at a time. Now we're going to preview that and make sure that the pie chart is working. And we can see we got a successful example here. So we'll close that. And now we're ready to move on. So we're going to save our settings in our graph. And then we're also going to preview that again, make sure that all the data elements have combined are working correctly. Selecting our release, clicking on Execute Report, and there we have constructed the pie chart exactly the way it looked in the beginning of this demonstration. Now we're ready to save our report. We go back to our editor, click Save, and now we have the ability to provide access to the report to the appropriate people on our team. Now that we've formally saved the report, we can run it one last time just to make sure everything is working appropriately. And we have a successful report, ready to be emailed, links that can be accessed. In this case, if we actually want to drill into a particular test case, we're able to do that as well. We'll click on test case number 35, and it takes us to the test management module, and there we see the specific test case we might want to be looking at, with a handy link that takes us back to the report. Of course, as with all Lighthouse reports, you can export them to various formats. Thanks very much for tuning in.